Pokemon Gun. And this video has officially been demonetized if there was ever any of that. Alright, I think we are live. So, aloha, lohali, signing in with this week's edition of the Manga Club featuring Bace Jeleren. And let me tell you, I had a hard time spelling that. I originally spelled it J-A-L instead of J-E-L. And that was confusing to say the very least. So this week, Bace brought up a really interesting topic. I've at least personally talked about when manga becomes other form of media, but today we want to throw that into reverse and talk about when other media becomes manga. So for those of you that don't know, Bace is another amazing creator on this channel. Right now, I believe she's sitting at almost 600 subscribers. We're gonna call it 600 at this moment in time because I like that. She is an artist with her own Tumblr, and she has been creating and collecting manga. You know, she's been collecting manga for, I believe, 10 years. Is that right, Bace? At least
Yeah.
about 10 years. She is an amazing creator, an amazing person, and you all know Graves, the largest manga collector in the United States. And you know what? Let's kind of dive into this. Bace, if you want to tell everyone just a little bit about yourself in case they don't know, but I'm pretty sure if you know about me, you have to know about Bace.
Alright, well, I'm Bace Jeleren, and I'm the one manga tuber who curses probably just as much as she breathes in all of her videos, which I'm going to try and refrain from doing here. Um, like Lohali said, I do a lot of like art stuff over on Tumblr. I I'm trying to do a lot more manga stuff here on YouTube. I'm trying to like mix it up outside of like, haul videos. And I try to bring like a different sort of like energy into all my videos and other stuff here on people. At YouTube. least I I'm trying try to like mix to. it up outside of like, And I try haul. to what I try to do a lot of is I try to be a lot more inclusive with how I treat manga. Like a lot of my things that I bring up is how like omnibuses, like people usually like gripe and like, complain about omnibuses, how they're big and the paper's bad. But I try to like look at things from the perspective of people who probably don't have a lot of money, or I try to look at it from the perspective of people who would want a lot more representation in the manga like sphere, like people in the LGBT community or people of different races and people of different genders and stuff like that. I try to bring that kind of side into the manga tube sphere sometimes. I'm doing it very slowly. It's a very slow process, but we're getting there.
And we appreciate that. I mean, you put in work. Like, if you go back and look through all of your videos, I think you have near 126 videos, I believe. And the one that you posted yesterday, which I believe is based off of the new, or at least was almost inspired by, at least the title, by the new Netflix special,
Oh
especially with the
yeah,
saying, "Does this
I know what you're
spark
talking about.
joy?"
Yeah.
And that's an interesting theory because you can ask, does this spark joy about adaptations? I mean, if something is done properly, you can almost say to yourself, does this spark joy? And if you say, no, this does not spark joy, does that mean it is an unsuccessful adaptation? I don't know. We'll answer that question later. See? I'm going to get you thinking about it. I'm going to get you thinking. So, when we first started, would you care to define what a reverse adaptation is?
A reverse adaptation, in like the most simplest terms, is when you take a manga, or even say, not a manga, an anime, or even something like a video game, or a light novel, or a visual novel, and you take it and you turn it into a manga and you sort of adapt it so that it fits within that sort of genre.
Is there, and when you brought up this topic, I know that I thought of one thing in particular, and I'm not sure, a few of you have probably heard of it, if not, try to collect it, but it is the Devil May Cry 3 manga. Have you
I've
heard?
seen it, I've never read it.
I'm asking OJ, do you have a story about that?
Oh.
Do you have the Devil May Cry manga in front of you right now?
Is he looking at it?
Are you talking about Amaskio J or me?
Why do I Graves? Why do I keep? Did I call you Maskio
That's
I
J,
was
what I'm
Graves?
like. Is it Meskio J in the
I was
chat?
like,
Wow,
did he comment on that?
wow, my bad. I am this 5 o'clock wake up time is the absolute worst. Graves, have you ever heard of the Devil May Cry 3 manga?
Yes,
Is it on
I
your shelves?
I own both. Yeah.
Was there's
Um. Yeah. I mean, talking about that, like a bunch of old Tokyo Pop actually came from video games. So it was just funny that you said that, and I was like, okay, this is where we're going. Okay.
this is
Starting off real strong.
hey, it is an amazingly well developed series with great characters.
What about
You
Castlevania?
Deep.
ooh ooh Castlevania. I have not read that one. Have you read that one, Base?
I have not.
This
Or like
is
my favorite, Suikoden 3, that one came from a video game.
gosh. See, I told you. Did I not tell you, Base? He has knowledge on everything. He's the most.
He's got everything. I swear to God.
He is adaptable on all manga. The only thing that he doesn't have is Rave Master yet.
Oh, there's a lot more than that.
Yeah, but that's the only. I can only laud
I'm
that
gonna
above
have to
your
set
head.
up my GoFundMe and just say, hey, I need you to donate me volumes instead of money, ones that I don't have. If it's old on your shelf, just send it in. I'll take it.
So the one that Base you brought up right before this chat started
Oh yeah.
was an anime to a manga, which I think
Yeah.
is a little bit more typical than a video game adaptation. So we were talking about Fooly Cooly, and I believe Shay brought up Your Name and Makoto Shinkai and other Makoto Shinkai films. So, and what you were saying was on point about Fooly Cooly. Could you tell everyone what you were saying? That way they're all caught up too.
I'm gonna try and remember what I said. So Foodie Cootie, the anime, sort of handled like it's a pretty much an anime about like puberty and about growing up, but it handled it in sort of an iconically sort of comedic way that slowly got serious as the series went on. And with the manga, I'm pretty sure they just let the artist let the I think it was just one guy who worked on it, the artist, and they just kind of like let him have free reign, just stick to the general plot, otherwise just do whatever the heck you want to do. And so it went dark immediately. The art style is a lot grittier. Like they didn't even like try. Like, they stuck to like the general like character models, but other than that, it's very sharp and very like dark. And immediately the themes are just very gritty and very real. And of course, there's a bunch of goofy stuff because there's a bunch of like robots popping out of people's heads. It's still about that, but it handles it in a lot like I said, grittier way. And the ending is a lot more open ended and a lot more like, oh, what's gonna happen? We're not sure. Is this a happy ending? Is this a sad ending? You're just gonna have to figure that out for yourself. It handles the topic of growing up and moving forward in your life a lot like less sort of it handles it a lot differently than the anime. I'm sorry, my throat's dry as heck.
That is okay. I mean, as long as you do the product placement properly with the Gatorade bottle
Oh
twisted
yeah,
so we
yeah.
can see the label. There we go. This video is definitely sponsored 100% by Gatorade.
Thank you, Gatorade. For all
Gator.
this money, we're definitely
Faderade.
at
Faderade. Yeah. I mean, the other funny thing with that is like with Fully Cooley, a lot of stuff that we watched on like Adult Swim, Toonami, different stuff like that, actually, got a bunch of different adaptations like that. Trigun. I saw Simply Gee post it, Cowboy Bebop. Um, a lot of different stuff like that got turned into manga because it was so popular, and they were like, "Hey, let's just here you go. Let's turn it into a manga as well."
I mean, one of the earliest examples that that popped into my head literally 30 seconds ago was right after Shay Geeks Out mentioned Neon Genesis Evangelion was Gundam. Mobile Suit Gundam was originally an anime that has also been adapted to a manga, and that anime started in the 1970s, the late 70s, but still the 70s. I mean, adaptations are all over the place. And
So I
they,
got a question for both of y'all. What do you guys know what today is?
Wednesday.
Today is Pokemon Day.
Oh, it's Pokemon Day.
it is Pokemon
And-
Day.
Pokemon Go on my phone. And
Yeah.
I'll do this.
And so, Pokemon originally is an adaptation from the video games.
Oh yeah.
And it took a completely different turn than the video games. Have you ever read that manga, Base?
I've seen like shots of the manga, like Pokemon getting like literally sliced in half, and it's like I don't remember that.
When did that happen in the games? That seems strange.
Like, oh no, I remember back in the way back machine, back when manga was still being printed in like floppy paper, like, oh, it's like comic book sort of things. I had it was Hey You Pikachu, like Electric Boogaloo, where it pretty much like it was about the very end of the Kanto arc where Ash is at like he's at what do they call it, like the league,
The Elite Four.
and it was the final battle between him and that kid who has pretty much like his exact same team. And in the anime, I clearly remember Ash loses because Charizard decides like, screw this, I'm not gonna help you.
You don't have enough badges to train me.
You're
I'm
never
done.
gonna have the badges to train me. But in the manga, Charizard goes like berserk and starts like literally trying to kill this other Charizard, and there's like blood, and he's like biting into his neck, and I'm like, this is a child's comic. I'm 10 years old. Like, these Charizards are literally trying to kill each other. I don't remember this.
Just the Pokemon. I think one thing that we might be able to agree on here, because we seem to agree on a lot, is the fact that the adaptations usually seem to take a little bit of a different tone than what the original source material had in mind. I mean, with Pokemon, so dark. I mean, they straight up they didn't lie to you when they were like, yeah, that ghost over there, that's Cubone's mother. You're like, oh well, I'm done. My emotions can't take this anymore.
I'm
Or
out.
walk out the door. Or with Fooly Cooley, it
So
was
long.
it was dark from the very start. It wasn't, it was heavy, it was deep from the start. And obviously there was the whole fiasco with Devil May Cry 3.
Please go on to explain Devil May Cry 3, because every single time you bring it up, it sounds like it didn't turn out as well as you hoped.
So, Jin, do you want to start this one off, or do you want me to?
Oh, I
Go
want to
down
know where you're
memory lane
going with
together.
this.
So, Devil May Cry, my introduction to Devil May Cry was Devil May Cry 4 on the PS3. So I was used to, I had Nero, I was like, oh, he's okay, but I knew about Dante. Like, I wanted Dante, I was expecting Dante to be this amazing gunslinger, and in the games, when he shows up, I was like, I'm done, this guy is amazing. This is the greatest protagonist of all time. Like, this is the, Deadpool mixed with, like arrogant, cocky. He's got it all, and he's got the skills. I was like, this is going to be great. So I was walking through half-price books, searching for whatever to sit in the middle of the aisles and read. Mind you, I'm a 21, 22-year-old sitting in a bookstore on the floor because they didn't have chairs, reading this. And I find Devil May Cry 3, and I start to build up this amazing, amazing hype in my own head. Now, the Devil May Cry 3 manga is here. It is based on the Devil May Cry 3 game, but it centers around the events that happened 1 year before number 3. And it explains how Dante and his brother came into fighting each other, and you have code 1 from Dante's point of view, code 2 where it's Virgil's point of view, and code 3 was supposed to be the third installment from Lady's point of view. However, it does not finish the entire story. It literally just leaves you hanging, and you're like, okay, this is fine. I'm not worried at all. But the blood was there, the gore was there. It just didn't feel the exact same as the game. And that could just be an expectation from playing number 4. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel like what Dante was supposed to be to me. Ah, there we go. There we go.
I got that all out of your system.
I got that all out of my system. That's my rant of how I discovered
Exercise.
Devil May Cry 3, and I still want to own it because it was ridiculous, but I also don't want to own it because I know how bad it actually is. At least personally. Has there been a time that an adaptation's kind of let you down, Bace?
Yes, actually, I was just about to say I have a story similar to that. It's not as like extreme, but I do have a story similar to that. And it was, I was in high school, and Yen Press was still like brand new. Like this is the time frame is this is when Yen Press was like, oh, it's this new publishing company, and they're really cool, and they're not definitely overpricing their manga. And I found the Haruhi manga, and I freaking love Haruhi. Haruhi is probably one of my favorite anime of all time. But the manga, it followed all of the story beats. It was very, very loyal to like the actual like storyline, the actual plot. But the artwork was so, I don't know if it got better later on because that series is like 20 something volumes long, but like the first like 5 volumes I think is how long I held on, and the art was just so boring. And that's another thing is when you come into from like an anime and you get a manga adaptation, it's like, oh sweet, and the manga art can't live up to the splendor that was the moving pictures. That was my experience with Haruhi, was like, this is boring, what is this? And I think they had like somebody else do the cover art, so it was extra deceptive. When I opened it up, it's like, this looks different. But yeah.
What about you, Graves? Do you have a story that similar to Base's in mind where you were disappointed by an adaptation?
Not really. I mean, it's kind of it is what it is. But I just remember thinking about it, especially since you brought Devil May Cry up. I have a friend that's like really all about Castlevania, which when you look at them, that's what you insinuate both of the volumes all with for Devil May Cry and Castlevania because they're really thin, and I mean it's got like that bad paper quality. And he would be like, every time I come over to your house, I'm gonna read it. I swear I'm gonna read it. And still to this day, he hasn't read it. So.
So, I guess here's a question for both of you, and I'm going to pose this in a way that hopefully doesn't start a huge internet war. Now, I have a few things sitting on my shelf. One is the Nightmare Before Christmas manga. Have either of you heard of that one?
Yes.
I've seen it. I have never read it.
So, is an adaptation from an American movie. Could that be considered a manga, or would you consider that more of a manga inspired comic?
Ooh, we're opening up a can of worms.
I told you.
Oh.
Can we really, because if we're able to discuss American media being processed into manga, that opens up the door to an interesting place that I didn't think I'd ever get to go because I have a few books ready to talk about already. But can American media become a manga? What would the requirements for it to be a manga be in this situation?
Oh, I have an example of this. Oh, I'm ready.
I'm ready for this, Base.
I'm ready for this. I got this.
Go. Dun dun dun.
Okay. So, one, I'm totally in the camp of manga inspired when it comes to like maybe somebody who's not Japanese taking an American or Western based property and making it sort of manga-esque. I feel like that is taking something and making it manga-like, but not it's not manga per se. I know manga in like the broadest of terms is just the Japanese word for comics. So in any case, anything can be manga, but in this very specific case, if you're talking about manga is Japanese comic books, it's got to come out of Japan. But I do have something right here. That's an American-based property that was made into a manga, and it is 100% a manga. And it's the Magic the Gathering manga.
Oh.
What? Jealous?
And it was adapted from a novel that was written way back a long time ago. But it never got finished. It got canceled, unfortunately.
They
Upset.
But there are cases where Western media can be made into manga, and then there's some cases where Western media can be made into things that can be marketed in the same sort of area as manga, but they're not technically manga. That's kind of where I stand.
So you think it has to be from a creator, like a manga creator, to make it a manga instead of just would that be
Well, I
kind
mean,
of
you got terms of like Western manga, or I think Tokyo Pop's got this thing going on where it's like the international women of manga. They got like a line going for that, where it's yeah, you can have Western manga where it's kind of manga, but it's by a Western um creator, but it's not like I know this is very classic Tokyo Pop, but 100% authentic manga.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
I mean, Kadash is doing the same thing. Coming out with some of the ones like Huckleberry Finn and
oh yeah,
Tom Sawyer and all that.
or like
I
manga
mean,
classics.
yeah, I think just with that, it's the intent behind it. Do
Yeah.
they intend it to be manga or do they intend it to be something else? Um, same thing with the whole Justice League manga that just came out earlier in the year. Like none of us would try and even associate that if it wasn't for it being a manga.
not even in the slightest. Not even in the slightest. I
I
there
mean, they
yeah.
look like All Might,
Everyone looks like All
Like My
Might.
Hero Academia, right?
right?
If
Right?
if you like My Hero Academia, you'll like this new series. It's about a man named Batman and a superpowered being almost as strong as All Might called Superman. So the reason that I bring this up is actually when we were searching for manga, or at least I came across a set of manga books that were inspired and written to, I believe, closely follow one of Sydney's favorite series, and that was the Dean Koontz Odd Thomas manga series. And I don't know if either of you have either one of those in your collection. Bace, I could tell from your face you were like, interesting. Interesting. So that's another like that's an example of another kind of way. We've been talking a lot about anime, and TV shows and video games becoming manga, but what about books? And I know I've talked about this with my Harry Potter. Should Harry Potter have a manga adaptation? But are there any books that you think, or is there a specific style of book that you think could make the transition to manga successfully?
Well, probably stuff like Harry Potter definitely lends itself to being made into a comic because it's so fantastical and it's just so out there. It would make a really really interesting manga, and I'm honestly really freaking shocked that it hasn't been done like at all. Just stuff that are in like the realm of fantasy or stuff and that's in the realm of sci-fi. I know for a fact. No, there's a Twilight manga. There's a manga
What?
adaptation of the Twilight
Yeah.
book. It's
There's
real.
one for that and one for Maximum Ride,
Oh
I
yeah,
know of
that's
the
and
on that
Maximum
too.
Ride one.
I think there's one for the Artemis Fowl series too.
What?
And there's one for shoot. It's on the tip of my tongue. Yen Press is doing it. Nope, it's gone. It's new. Can't
Tell
think of
me
it.
what it is.
I'll
And
remember it like near the end of the stream, and I'm just gonna shout it out.
that's
I'll
Just in the
forget
okay.
middle, you'll be
nothing.
like, I got it.
I mean, I think you almost have to have a specific type of world, at least again, this is in my opinion, to transfer from purely text-based books to more, that manga comic book style. Like, I don't know if I could really see a Lord of the Rings being in there just because
What?
of the way it sounds weird.
You take that back right now.
I I think for me, I think it's because it's so tight with the way that they describe everything that it wouldn't leave as much creative freedom, and we wouldn't be getting what I believe an adaptation should be. Now, here comes the next question. Should an adaptation be faithful to its original source material?
Does not have to.
Does not have to.
Because an adaptation doesn't usually, it's not like, it doesn't have to be one for one. It just has to adapt the work. And sometimes people are given 100% creative freedom, like in Fooly Cooly. And I know recently Tokyo Pop just released Yuri Bearstorm, which is the manga adaptation of the anime Yuri Kuma Arashi. And the artist who did the actual character design for the show was would only agreed to do the manga if she was given 100% creative freedom. And it's like, yes, that's a good adaptation. Maybe some people don't think that if it's not one for one exactly like it, it's not a good adaptation. But the nature of adaptation is just taking something and adapting it for a different medium. And if you got to change some things in order to make that adaptation, you got to change some things. The
Right.
nature of adaptation is things are going to get changed. You can't perfectly have a one for one thing if you're taking something like an anime or something like a video game and then making it into a manga, which is not something that's motion based, not something that's, like high definition graphics based. There's always going to be stuff that's lost in adaptation or stuff that's changed or stuff that's like completely 100% different. And maybe that's just me, but I'm not really a purist. I like to see artists and different like creators try different things in order to fit square block into circular peg.
What about you, Graves? What's your take on this?
Um, I mean, I feel like most of the time you're given so much material that you can basically dance around whatever you want to. The only adaptation so far that I haven't liked is actually just from a movie, which is kind of close to what we just talked about. But the Hobbit movie, I didn't like they added to it.
Interesting.
So
See,
I mean, if it's kind of like you said with reading Harry Potter or anything else, like you can have all that stuff moving forward as long as you work in the realm of the stuff that you get. But I don't think you should take anything and then add something to it because it's not your work or anything like that to, I guess, screw up kind of.
Well, to be fair, they no, this has nothing to do with manga, and I don't really want to go on a tangent, but they didn't 100% make up. Maybe they did. Never mind. I think they did 100% make up some stuff, but for the most part, they did pull from other Tolkien works.
Yeah.
they did and this goes to show how much I pay attention to some apparent reason. They ended up changing, like who was killed by who, uh, from different Tolkien works. Like the main bad guy from The Hobbit, the main orc, was he an orc or was he a goblin? I think he was a goblin. Anyway, the main bad goblin was only mentioned. He wasn't in The Hobbit. He wasn't killed the way that he was supposed to be killed. It was insane. But I think this kind of brings up an interesting. This brings up something that I kind of think. I think that you can change the material to suit the medium. However, I think once you change the character development of a well-established series, you can change some of the events, but if you change the character, not even development, just character personality traits, I think that's when I would start to feel kind of against an inspired work, an adapted work, because you're changing the characters who I know who I'm reading it for, and it just makes me not want to read it anymore.
Right.
Got a point.
I mean, that's
I mean, you're going into it for the characters, and if somebody's all like acting 100% different, it's all like, hold on,
Hmm.
what is this?
Who are you?
Who is this person?
who is
So, since we've talked about that, this is going to kind of guide me into the next thing I want to ask with y'all. So, how do you guys feel about cheap blows when it comes to manga? And I only call it a cheap blow because whenever they take like anime and they turn it into an anime manga, where it's just
Oh,
like it's
God.
just pictures from the movie or show or whatever, and then you're just basically reading it.
I have something like that. I have, it's a Japanese production, but it was this manga of the entire Madoka series. And there were times where I was reading it and I would come across a panel that's pretty much just a shot of the anime where it's like, if you'd taken this screenshot 2 seconds later, this would have been perfect. This looks dumb. But yeah, it's kind of, it feels like a shameless cash grab more than anything. Like, oh, it's the anime, but we put it in comic form. Buy it. And I did.
Right?
and
And
is it
it's so weird because the whole Hayao Miyazaki movies are all that way in any manga form.
there is one question
Ooh.
um that Simply G brought up, and it's a good point. Is it an adaptation if they don't change anything? Let me get the exact question here so I'm not
Okay, okay.
misquoting.
Is it an adaptation if they don't change anything?
Um, Adaptations that don't add anything new seem pointless. Why adapt it at all? Do you think that's a fair? Do you think this is a fair question?
She poses a good point, but there's also, I don't know, because there are people who like their one for one. Like, oh no, they changed this. I don't like it. I'm out. I'm gone.
The spell said it
But
was red, but it's blue now. I can't handle all this pressure.
can't do it. Can't do it.
Oh, I mean that's completely fine. I mean, you're not changing that much. Just like, you know, if we were if we were writing a manga, let's say based off of me, you, and Base in a fantasy world as a party, we're all going to see stuff differently. And I mean, you could do a manga based off of my perspective, one based off of Base perspective, and one based off of your perspective. And it could all be a totally different story.
I agree. Do you think that there's such a thing as? Do you think that as fans, as collectors, as lovers of this medium and the mediums that they're being translated or adapted from, do you think that there's a way that we can find a balance between changing to create a different artistic property, but also drawing a balance so that it remains some of the integrity of the original?
That's kind of
Yes.
hard to say, because people have like different opinions and stuff. It's really like really really hard to please 100% of the people 100% of the time.
Um, yeah, and again, Simply G doing her due diligence of being the most researched and thorough creator on this platform posed another phenomenal question. What like if we complain about changes and adaptations from the original source material to manga, how do we feel about anime original endings to something that was the what some people felt as a good thing? How do you feel about anime original endings?
I have a perfect example of this because I mean they're fine if you're going into it and you haven't. Uh, some of them are great if you really need to tie something up together and you don't want to like go on like hundreds of episodes of filler waiting for the manga. I understand that they have to do it. I understand that it's a thing that sometimes it's unavoidable, but there is a manga, and it's my favorite manga of all time, and it's never getting an adaptation because I'm cursed. And it's Majin Tante Naogami Nero. and
Oh,
it got an anime. And the anime is like 50% filler. And by the time they finished the anime, the manga hadn't been completed. So they had to create a whole entire just 100% original ending. Like they wound up like wrapping it up in like Central America, and they had to like wrap up a bunch of people like characters like their like character growth in there, and they had to like bullshit a bunch of stuff. And watching that, and I used to be like totally okay with that. Then the manga ended, and now I go back and watch the anime, and it's all like, what is happening? This is what? No, because then you'll go back, and it's like half the stuff in this ending is like that's factually wrong.
so is it? And the next question is it factually wrong if it was made first and if it was intended for a different ending? Like the ending that they intended with the anime was different than what was intended with the manga. Can that is that factually wrong, or is that just you feel like that's wrong?
Maybe I feel like it's wrong.
Maybe both.
Maybe it's both. I'm one of those people who I maybe it makes me sound like a snob, but and I know, like I said, I know sometimes you got to do this, and sometimes these things have to happen. But I'm not the biggest fan of anime original endings, because then you read the ending of the actual canonical work, and it's like, okay, because then you feel like lied to, like none of that was real. Edward Elric going to Nazi Germany wasn't real.
Why?
And
I
that's
don't want to
actually
see
something
Edward Elric punch Hitler. Dang it!
that was actually something that they've brought up in the chat was, FMA is the FMA uh manga. There's two separate endings, the FMA ending and the FMA Brotherhood ending. One of those is original to the manga and one of those is not. But one of them came clearly first and they built up to it. But they're both classics, would you agree? Or they can both be considered classics.
Well, hmm.
I feel like in
I
this
mean,
area, you have to kind of go off of
oh,
like
one second. My cat.
you have to go off of like the DC Marvel whole thing and be like, there's two different universes. They're not even connected.
Come here.
And that's I think that's kind of the thing that we are going to eventually agree on. Oh, it's a kitty.
It's
It
a
looks
cat.
like Smokey, only fluffier.
Maybe
He's
Smokey
causing
just like
trouble.
poofed there.
Nah, Smokey's not that fluffy and adorable. I hope you hear that, Smokey.
We're
He's
talking about you.
right here somewhere on this couch.
It's hard to point out black cats in a black background.
It is. He's
Right.
there. Trust me, and he's being adorable by sleeping. But I
Oh,
think I think what a lot of these adaptations come down to, and if we feel as if they're successful, is whether or not it's an emotional knee jerk response. And I think that's part of what makes it hard to say whether or not these are successful adaptations or not. Is are they are they good factually or are they good subjectively?
it is probably subjective, because there are people who grew up with the original FMA, and that's probably how like they were like originally thought that FMA ended, was all like, oh, it winds up in the real world, and that's like how they originally experienced it, and that's like, how they originally were exposed to it.
That's almost actually how I was originally exposed to it. My cousin had me watch it, and I watched one of the episodes where they like ended up in Nazi Germany. I was like, how did we get here? I was like, I watched one episode, we were in a different world, and then we suddenly ended up in Germany. So confused.
What?
Right?
What are you
And
talking
then
about?
wasn't Envy like a giant like serpent or whatever? I was like, how does that happen? This is the real world.
None of this. The world is breaking. The world is breaking. And you know what? Flip
But
otaku is correct. Art is
going
subjective.
on going on that note, though, I think it's kind of funny. This is one thing that I know a lot of people haven't actually caught. It's really weird because I like FMA like a lot, and so when I started reading the manga, it was way after watching both of them, watching
Watching
Brotherhood
Brotherhood.
and the show and everything, and the whole ending thing was a big shocker. But I'll never forget the one thing I saw that was an adaptation, and it made me stop on the chapter I was on, and I had to go back and watch the anime to figure out if it was right. But right when both the boys come to see their teacher, and they're talking about her husband, and he walks out. In the manga, he walks out with a butcher's cleaver, and in the anime, he doesn't walk out with anything, and it threw me off. And I was like, "Wait, there's supposed to be something here that is not
Something's
here."
missing.
Yeah,
I feel lied to and emotionally manipulated.
but that was one like a small thing that it's like it doesn't really like matter that much that it was different compared to the cataclysm that is the ending that it's like, wait, Germany? What? A giant snake or a dragon? Where did they go?
Where did they go and how did we get here?
It's Major Hughes and he's alive.
Right?
That's
I remember watching that. A friend let me borrow it, and I was like, why does this say Full Metal Alchemist on the cover when there's nothing related to it but the names? They're like, that's the ending. I was like, you're shitting me.
What is this?
what is this and why do I feel upset? I mean, this is all kind of, I think no matter what happens, this discussion's always going to come back to how do we subjectively feel about this? Is there an adaptation that you feel was the single most successful? Like something that you go back and you're like, yeah, that was what it's supposed to be.
Ooh. I gotta. I feel like this might be like a random answer, but the manga adaptation for 5 centimeters per second captured the actual like events of the movie pretty well, I think.
Intriguing.
I didn't feel like I missed out on anything like, oh, they didn't include this. I thought it was pretty good.
I'm gonna have to go watch that now.
And did you think that was a pretty 1-to-1?
Almost. I think I read the manga before I watched the anime, but when I was watching like the original like short movie collection, and I didn't feel like there was anything where I was all like, why wasn't this in the manga? It was more like, oh, at first I thought the anime was the adaptation of the manga, and I was all like, oh, sweet. But I feel like it captures the essence of the movie pretty darn well.
I think, and I haven't actually. I'm about to break everyone's hearts like I usually do, because I'm showing that my inner nerd isn't as strong as it should be. I have not seen nor read 5 centimeters per second.
You should.
I
You're
should.
fine. There's not a lot of people.
Just most of the world.
Yeah, like half of y'all.
Just sit down and marathon all the Makoto Shinkai stuff.
Do I have enough time in my life to do that? There's so many. There's at
Right
On this
least
now. If the man keeps
on
making movies, maybe not.
on this island that's the podcast, you're the weakest link. But in the real world,
in
you're
in the
probably about half the people.
in the real world. Well, this is the real world. If I die in this chat, I die in real life. Um.
We'll get into
Okay.
some
Yeah.
dot hack stuff. So I want to bring this up now too, thinking about it. So what do you feel about something that is an adaptation taking from another material and then forming its like own life, I guess, being like the No Longer Human manga. You know, it came from a novel, but it's not based off the novel.
You see, I've never read the novel, and until they release the Junji Ito version of the manga, I'm never going to be privileged to read the one manga that's out because I don't have hundreds of dollars to spend.
Yeah, I don't have the money to do that right now. Is it worth it, Graves? What's your take on it? Since you seem to have an
For
opinion.
now, oh, nothing is worth an arm and leg. I'm just gonna tell you that. If it's like a volume of manga, I mean, sure. In reality, if it's like $60 because it's really old, that's fine. I totally agree with that. When we get over into triple digits, I can't agree with it. You know, I would just be like, hey, let me go to the library and make you guys some scans real quick. I'm just gonna for a
Staple
dime.
them up and send them out.
Yeah, here you go.
Um, question just popped into my head, and what happens if an adaptation is condemned by its creator, by the originator of the series, but it's
Oh,
beloved by fans? Is
I
that a
have
successful adaptation?
I I think it depends on, once again, it's subjective, but I do have an example of that, and it's the Azumanga anime. The creator of Azumanga has gone on record to say that he did not like the anime at all. And to that point, he will not let anybody adapt Yotsuba because he did not like the adaptation for Azumanga that much. But coming from me, I grew up on Azumanga Daioh. Azumanga Daioh was like my like anime high school group's anime. Like we had like one person in our group who was like, "Oh, you're that character, and we're gonna call you that character forever. That's your nickname." Like we were into Azumanga Daioh that hard. I loved Azumanga Daioh.
Viewers,
Azumanga Daioh
it's
shaped
behind
me
her
as a
shoulder.
young woman,
It's
and
right behind
I
her
love
shoulder, guys. You guys can see it.
Which shoulder?
The
it.
right one.
Yeah, it's right there. I see it. Like a Where's Waldo kind of game.
Right? You bring it up and hey, look, there it is.
Um,
Are you looking at it too?
I'm trying.
You can just turn around and grab it if you want.
Turn around.
Just be like, guys, it's right here.
everybody. I can't. I have no idea how that's.
It's included. It happens.
But yeah, I didn't figure out that the manga author hated the Azumanga Daioh anime so much until much later in my life. And surprisingly, it doesn't really color my feelings about the anime any more than I already feel about it. Like, I still feel like it's a fantastic adaptation of the manga. I loved it. And it's, I don't know, but oh, oh, but there's one case where I can say that something was not wasn't a proper adaptation because the manga author didn't like it. And that was the original Phantom Blood movie. The JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Phantom Blood movie.
Uh,
It wasn't the anime. It was a movie that was screened in theaters and it never left theaters because Araki saw it and he's like, this is bad. That was really bad. I can't let you release this on home video. No, absolutely not. And the only copy of this movie exists somewhere on Skywalker Ranch because they helped with the sound design. And that's probably the only case where an adaptation is bad solely based on the fact that the original creator did not like it.
um, and let's see. That's one thing that I don't know. I don't know anything about the Resident Evil manga, so I can't talk about that. But Simply G, always bringing up more points. The
Right.
author, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, Base. The author of Mary Poppins hated the Disney film, but it doesn't make it
Oh yeah.
bad. And like you literally just touched on this with your, you know, you were like, well, the author of, I can never say that name, by the way,
Ozymandias.
Ozymandias. Did I say that? Did I finally get it right? The author of Ozymandias didn't like it, but does that mean that it was a terrible anime?
Maybe it wasn't a terrible anime to him. Maybe it was a terrible movie to the original author of Mary Poppins, but
That's the thing, is I think it really does come down to subjectivity. We've been focusing a lot on just subjectivity. We keep coming back to subjectivity. But
Subjectivity.
subject,
Kid, the word of the day is
subjectivity. We are speaking in
today's
subjectivity.
podcast is brought to you by the letter S.
right.
Or suck it, subjectivity. Everybody gets one. Everybody gets one. Is there any like? Is there anything that we can Is there anything that the MangaTube community can universally agree, is either an amazing adaptation, or a great, or an amazing adaptation, or a terrible adaptation? Is there anything that we can universally agree on?
Oh, I don't know.
Camille?
Uh,
Like I said, we're a diverse collection of people. We got a lot of our own opinions. We could probably group ourselves together. I don't think we'd ever come up with like a exact like this adaptation was good. Because you're
right.
always gonna have that person. It's all like, nope.
We get that one person.
Darn it,
Everybody,
one person.
pull out your clubs and pitchforks. We're gonna make them change their mind.
We're gonna make this a perfect adaptation.
This,
Everybody who says it's not,
you're
raise
wrong.
your hands.
Raise your hands, because you're wrong.
'Cause you're wrong.
'Cause you are so wrong. Is there? I mean, is there one thing that you would like to see adapted into a manga?
Ooh. Ooh. I gotta think because I don't watch a lot of anime.
There's
Not just
so much.
Not just anime. It could be a book, it could be a game, it could be, honestly, it doesn't have to be media. It could just be inspired by a series like a card game, or a, like Pokemon was, or like Yu-Gi-Oh, kind of, a little bit.
Beyblade.
I'd honestly like to see more Magic the Gathering stuff, even though the one time they tried it failed and sank miserably. I'd like to see them try again.
Oh,
'Cause I'm
so
an
I do
awful
want to
Magic
ask
the
this
Gathering
question
dog,
though.
and I'd like to see the two things that my life is dedicated to collide.
I do want to ask this question though. So, how many of you guys out there actually knew that Base's name was based off of a Magic the Gathering character?
What?
Did you not know that?
I did not know that.
I was watching one of her videos one time and it hit me and I was like, "Holy! I already got one. I had to stop myself."
I'm
And I
a
was like,
Yeah,
"Uh,
it's Jace Beleren flipped. Jace Beleren is a character from Magic the Gathering.
I have some bad news for you, Base.
Wait.
I've never played Magic.
you're a horrible human being."
No.
I do declare. Let me get my piece of paper to fan myself with.
Oh gosh.
Are the vapors too hot in there?
Oh,
The
good
vapors
golly
are
gosh.
the vapors are too hot. Making fun of
Mr.
the
Beauregard.
Mr. Beauregard. Okay, so Magic the Gathering for you, Graves. Is there anything that you would love to see adapted into, a manga?
Everything.
Everything.
Yes.
Everything.
I actually have a series already in my mind that I would love to see adapted into a manga. But you got to give me one example. Come on, just one example. You can't say everything. You know I don't let you cheat out on this.
Christ. Thinking. I don't know. I mean, something that is a lot better. I mean, I would like something else that's kind of along the lines of like Pokemon, not Digimon. God, no, not Digimon.
Oh, so a
Um,
Beyblade manga. I got it.
no, not even that. They already have that. Not that either. Probably something like the old game that I've played for the PS3, either Enchanted Arms or I can't remember what it's called. Um, Hollow something maybe. Um, because whenever they had the uh Devil Summoner book come out, I got the anime, which we just got worst adaptation. Stories don't even go together, the characters aren't even the same, but somehow somebody got it in their mind, hey, we're gonna use the same things and do this, but none of it's the same. So the manga was super good. Um, but I mean, something that's like that. If I could ever remember the freaking name of the other one, um, it would be good though. It's like mystery and stuff like that.
So this is gonna probably, uh, so I obviously watched a lot of Harry Potter, so most of you would expect me to say Harry Potter, but since I've already made a video dedicated to that, I'm going to choose my another. I have two series that I think would make pretty interesting uh, manga, and that would be what are you doing, Smokey? He's getting water. Two interesting series, or I guess collection of series. One is the uh, Pendragon series. It is a 10-book collection all about basically. It's hard to describe without ruining the story. It's really, really interesting. It's really, really good. Um, and I love it a whole heck of a lot. It's fantasy. It's action sci-fi fantasy, and I think it would be really, really good. But the other one, the one that I would love to see, and I think could continue on for a while, is the Percy Jackson like Gods of
Yes.
Olympus series. I'm not just talking
Yes.
I'm talking the Percy Jackson series, the Heroes of Olympus series, um, the Norse mythology one, and the Egyptian one. Like his whole universe that he's built, and he's either done it with Ghost Riders or without Ghost Riders. I think would be phenomenal to transfer to like manga and anime because they've already tried to do a live action movie and they failed. They failed hardcore. Base, you seemed excited about that choice.
Love that this I haven't really read a lot of that author's work, but I love that author as a person. He's fantastic.
We'll have a discussion about him later, since it's technically not manga related. But I literally have, I have, I have the Egyptian mythology series on my phone. I have the Norse mythology series on my phone. I'm finishing up the Bloods of Olympus series, and then I'm gonna do the OG Percy Jackson series, like all on audiobook. Like that's how I do it. I listen to audiobooks at 1.75 speed. Um, So, and we're gonna kind of wrap this up because I do have to be going to bed in a few minutes.
Okay.
Hey, I found that game too.
Which game?
You got it on the screen.
Folklore.
Folklore.
Okay, okay. I thought that was a T. My bad, guys. My glasses aren't on because I would look. See, this is what I look like with my glasses on camera. Can't see my eyes. You can see the screen though.
So, off of your choice, do you think that it would be really good for kids and whatnot having a mythology adaptations to certain mangas, kind of depicting stories that we've had based off of the Greeks and Egyptians and everything?
I think that would be a great way for kids to consume different historical, hey Smokey, mythological stories. I think that would be a phenomenal way to do it. That's how I would love to do it. I would love to read the Iliad and the Odyssey, but I can't. Do you know how many words are in the Iliad and the Odyssey? there are a lot, and my brain doesn't work that well with a lot of words. I would love a manga.
I'm reading this webcomic right now called Lore Olympus, and it's pretty much just a modernized take on Persephone and Hades. It's cool as heck.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that'd be really cool to see as a manga. Just any kind of adaptation of any sort of ancient mythology would be rad. Hi, cat.
That was my face, Smokey. Thank you.
It's really weird that we haven't had a
foot in your face.
right. It's weird that we haven't had an adaptation of like the God of War series or anything either.
That would be so cool.
Yeah.
Like a seinen God of War. That would be amazing. Bace, do you have any final closing thoughts? Any final questions?
Yes, I do have a final closing statement, and that is, I remembered that manga I was talking about earlier. It's the Mortal Instrument series. I remembered it. See? I remembered it.
Oops.
Boom. Mortal Instruments
My statement is literally what I said I was going to close out with. That I remembered that adaptation.
You did it.
I did it.
All right, so this was a great time, Bace. Phenomenal to have you on. If you want to tell people where they can find you, what your next kind of video project is, anything else that you want to tell us about yourself that you haven't said yet, now is your chance.
All right. Well, aside from YouTube, you can find me on Tumblr at Bace Jeleren. It's all one word with a dash in between. You can find me on Instagram at Bace Jeleren. You can find me on Archive of Our Own at Bace Jeleren. And next video I'm putting up on here is probably just going to be my February manga haul, where I just show off all the crap that I bought this month. But other than that, don't got a lot of plans. I'm busy as heck these days doing commissions and stuff. But if you want to see what I'm up to, also Twitter is also, it's at B Jeleren.
At B Jeleren.
If you want to see what I'm up to while I'm not making videos, I'm mostly active over on Tumblr at Bace Jeleren and Twitter at B Jeleren.
And she is active. She is awesome. And she is a great to have on. Thank you so much for coming on, Bace. It was an absolute pleasure. Graves, if you want to do your normal sign out, and you know the usual routine here.
Right. So start out how I don't know what I'm gonna say. No, it was great having you on, Bace. And guys, continue to hop on, watch us go over, watch Bace, subscribe to her if you haven't, and I will catch you guys later. Hopefully, you will get to watch some of the new videos coming out because I am way behind. So, Gene Graves signing off.
All right. This was an absolutely fun talk. We got a lot of discussion in the live stream chat, going back and forth. Overall, we decided that it's a subjective kind of thing if a reverse adaptation can be successful. We spent an hour figuring out that subjectivity still applies to real life.
Good job, team.
Good,
that was one for science.
You know what? We did it in less time than the philosopher's take, so I'm gonna count that as a victory.
Take that.
Take that, science. Take that, philosophy. I made that mistake once. Anyway, in the next month, I will actually be attending a NakaCon in Kansas City, which is from March 15th through the 17th. I believe I will be going in on the Saturday, possibly the Friday. No promises here, but that would be the 15th and the 16th. I'm going to be going dressed as a manga tuber. If you are there, or if you want to come hang out, let me know. I have a spare couch that you can crash on. I don't have a lot of spare couches, but I have one. Maybe two.
And
a love seat. And you know what? I have a recliner. There's 3 places for you guys to sleep. So let
Wait,
me know.
What's the thing in the middle? Isn't it like a futon?
No, that is a huge ottoman. But you can curl up in a ball.
Right.
Let me know, because I know that a few of us have been wanting to get together. But if not, we're going to 100% get on it next year. But thank you guys for being on. Next week, we have Shay is an otaku. Man, my words are not coming out right at the very end. If that's not embarrassing, I don't know what is. Yes, it is Shay is an otaku, and we are going to be talking about manga later in life. Name pending because that's how we do here. For those of you who are wanting to be on the live stream, look out for. I'm going to send a tweet out with a link again for the sign-up sheet so we can get more guests on, because I love having y'all on. We love having discussions with you, because without you, Jin and I would just be talking back and forth about our collections, which we do anyway. But there'd
Right.
be...
And
but there's...
So I got one more little shout out though. Guys, be prepared for Dueling Banjos Week. We're gonna have that coming up. You guys know I'm also on the Otaku Dadcast on Monday, and on that week we're gonna have Lohalia on our show, and then Wednesday we're gonna have Flip Otaku on this show. So
be prepared.
Sounds fun.
And Bace, again, thank you so much. It was a great time having you on. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. We are going to have Flip on soon. As always, for everyone new and old, welcome and welcome back. It's your boy Lohalia, signing out.